and we don't tend to look at their potential. And yet potential is what you're investing in when you're investing in a person. And so I think it's incumbent on all.
Visit the deals page, dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com/deals. Get your coupon codes there for all of the retailers who support the Dear Business Coach podcast and are giving you a special discount for being a listener here. You are listening to the Dear Business Coach podcast. My name's Elizabeth Walker and expert guests. Ready here? Just for a couple minutes. All right. And Dana, welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. How are you today?
I am great. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Me too. I actually learned a couple things when we first talked. And, I'm curious to know maybe a little bit of some of your background, but what are you working on today? What's on your desk today, Dana?
Oh wow, that's such a useful question for this podcast, I have to tell you.
Oh,
So first of all, just by way of very brief introduction, I'm Dana Theus in Power Coaching. I'm an executive coach. I have a corporate practice with leadership teams, mostly in medium-sized business and more medium-sized to large nonprofits. And I work with executive teams and the head of the organization to level up the leadership culture. But I also have a private practice with women and women on the leadership track and entrepreneurs, big business, little business, across the board. Because I think, women enjoy a special kind of support on the leadership track that is different than the typical leadership teachings, which are kind of male oriented. So I really enjoy that work as well. But to your question about what's on my desk, it really is rethinking as an entrepreneur myself, rethinking my marketing strategy because I come out of a career of like 15 years of product marketing and strategic marketing and branding. And so I'm always retooling my own marketing strategy. And I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, the internet is changing, social media is changing, AI is changing, and it's really making me rethink like, how am I going to show up to people in a way that is authentic to me and brings in new business and doesn't cost me an arm and a leg. So that's what's on my desk today.
well, good. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, no kidding. That's a good share for sure. And I would say it's not really that common, I guess, to shit for someone to come right out and say that exactly. Well, actually, I am revamping my marketing and I if we were, having we were sitting in Starbucks or something, I would say, don't you feel like this is something that we is happening every week? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What have you stopped doing? And
Those are the questions I'm asking myself. Let's put it that way. But I do have to say, I personally enjoy podcasts, listening to them, and I enjoy doing the interviews because, unlike social media, which is now so full of AI slop, and it's like back in the day, I met great people through social media. I hardly ever meet people through social media anymore because it's just all advertising and, even on LinkedIn. But podcasts, giving the interviews, having the conversations, listening to the interviews, it's just so much more human than all the other stuff out there these days. So I'm kind of leaning towards like more podcasts because it's just more fun for
oh
everybody.
yeah. Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today with conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen and follow and subscribe on social media. Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. I agree. Well,
I'm sure you do.
so most, yeah, it really is. And you bring up a good point there where it's important to be able to think about what gives you energy, I guess would be a way to say that. And
Yeah.
you're highlighting this idea that you want to talk to people and explore things with folks in a more get to know you. It's something that I've thought about from the beginning of the podcast until now is how the meeting here comes first, right? We're so now we have become so accustomed to the video meeting um, that folks who are in college, for example, they expect, as far as I've been told directly from from folks working in that arena, that you are that it's almost weird to be asked to a face-to-face meeting first, right? It's not the first thing you do.
Let me just say this. I think that we have to take it as a given that men and women have different cultural experiences of life, right? We get different cultural messages. We have there's who we are as individuals, which is different because our bodies are different and our roles in life are different. And then
Mm,
there's all the cultural baggage that says men should be this way and women should be this way. And part of maturation in general is just kind of growing out of that to become who you are. And what's interesting is in a business context, um, the business environment is coded masculine. You know,
mm,
leaders are strong and confident and directive. And in fact, leaders need to be those things, right? To like
mm,
run a business is hard. And you have to make hard decisions and you have to kind of take on a feeling of ownership. And that is in our culture coded male. So for women, they bring a lot of skills to leadership that leadership desperately needs. We always hear leaders should be more empathetic. Well, female leaders don't need to be more empathetic. Sometimes they have to tamp down their empathy. But the
mm,
reason we hear leaders need to be empathetic is because most male leaders aren't raised to be empathetic. So to be a full, a leader of people, they have to learn to be empathetic. So in part to answer your question, a lot of what I work with women on is looking at that challenge of leadership and decoding the male aspects of it that they don't resonate with and finding the authentic aspects of it they do resonate with. So let's just look at empathy. Most women are empathetic, not all, trust me. I've had some very women that struggle with empathy, right? And that's a different challenge. But for the most part, women overcompensate into empathy and then they find it hard to make decisions without second guessing themselves or feeling like they're being too insensitive to people's, you know, needs or whatever. And so as you get to a certain level of leadership, you really have to grapple with that. You have to get to the point where you can be empathetic when you need to, and you can be directive and make hard decisions and have hard discussions when you need to. And so the challenge that women have doing that is just different than it is with men. And a lot of what I am doing with them is just helping them say, what is authentic to me? Because at the end of the day, men and women both succeed when they're more authentic. And so for women, that means decoding from the culture and being able to hear what's inside you about what feels authentic, which is why I call my business in power coaching. It's like going inside.
mm,
Um, so that you can operate in a male coded business environment authentically without feeling like you're compromising yourself or you're second guessing yourself all the time. So it's this little loop of like, okay, I've got to a certain point. Now I gotta rethink myself as a leader and my business as my vocation and avocation maybe. And who do I want to be to take this where my vision says I can take it. And that's just a lot of fun for me and usually for them too. I hope I answered most of your questions there, but I don't know if I did.
right. Right. So part of what I do is ramble a little bit so that you can
So I can ramble back.
pick what you want. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Because of course there's a voice in me that says, "No, I don't want to dive too deep into the differences because that's a problem, right?
Right.
Is that a problem? Is that a dysfunctional way?" And
Fair question.
yeah. You did start with something that I come back to a lot, which is our bodies are different, and that's kind of like this beginning starting point of division of labor, and how are we culturally taught, and how are we, and then that's a language and a code. Do to start thinking about how I'm coding or what is authentic to me. I don't really know.
Yeah, right. That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. Let me say this by way of how I look at what you just said about like kind of you've had this feeling like I have to be all of the things.
Hmm.
And the irony is the best leaders, this is research based, the best leaders truly are all of the things. They're just not all of the things all the time. What they learned, this is masculine, feminine, like this is not gender specific. The best leaders learn to read the situation and say, what does this situation really require? And what is this situation? What is the best I can get out of this situation? So if I'm in a really hard-nosed negotiation, maybe actually empathy is needed. Like the male code says, no, double down, win it, right? And yet you realize this other person, something's going on with them. Maybe a little empathy would be helpful to just take it down a step, get into a cooperative mode. Or maybe it's not. Maybe that's not it. Like that's not going to work. And learning to read the situation and go, is empathy needed? Is empathy not needed? Employees, sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. And so where I encounter this with my clients is let's just take the idea of tough love. With men, I emphasize love. They're good at being tough, learned to be loving, and yet still give hard feedback. With women, it's more of the tough side. They're more comfortable with being empathetic, and I'm using the word love here, but they're in their comfort zone is more in the love section. And I'm like, learn to be tough and loving. So with both men and women, I'm like, learn tough love. Like learn
Hmm.
to know how to do tough love, when to do tough love, what that looks like for you. But with men, I am push more on the love side, and with women, I push more on the tough side because of the way we come to that in our default modes. So going back to the point, which I want to bring up to you about authenticity, is, the best leaders of any gender are going to learn to do tough love well, and they're going to learn how and when to deploy those skills extremely well so that people know where they stand. People need to know where they stand when they're getting feedback. Women and men, we all have a uniquely uh, coded leaning towards the tough or the love. So authentically, we have to ask ourselves, all right, what does it look like for me to be tough, giving tough love? I need to be more loving, or I need to be tougher, and I need to be more sensitive to when one of those skill sets is best needed. And then I have to ask myself, what is the story in my head that tells me I can't do this? So a man might come to it and go, well, if I'm empathetic, they'll think I'm weak. And so my challenge to a man is, all right, how do you give tough love without being weak? How can you be strong? What does it look like when you're strong and you're also being sensitive?
Hmm.
And that then the man has to go, oh, I've never tried to solve that problem before. I've always tried to solve the problem of not being weak. And the reverse is true for women. Okay, you want to go and be nice, but that's not going to serve this conversation. The employee is, or whoever you're talking to, is not going to hear that they need to, step up. So what does it look like for you to be sensitive to their challenges and push them and hold them accountable? What does that look like for you? And your answer and my answer and the guy next door to us in Starbucks when we're chatting about this, we would all solve that problem differently, but the way we would solve it would be authentic to us. And we just need to challenge ourselves with those new ideas of both and instead of either or. Instead of like, well, I either have to be weak or strong. It's like, what does it look like to be strong and sensitive? or
Mhm.
tough and sensitive. And that's a really interesting problem. But when you ask yourself that question, you go, well, let me try it this way. And you try it and you get feedback and you say it worked or it didn't work. Now you're into your authentic zone. You're discovering your authentic zone outside the social stories, the social coding that tells you you cannot do it, right? And that's how you get into authenticity. You just challenge yourself to do things the social coding isn't giving you guidance on how to do, but that you feel is important.
Mm. So you know that I wasn't expecting you to use the phrase tough love, and yet that is it makes you stop. It makes me stop because that's something I would think about with a child, or
Oh, parenting and leadership. There's a good conversation.
well, and then and I don't want and I don't know that that's a comfortable place, right? I would have to put other words on it to make it appropriate. And you did, and you do. And I love this exercise. It's not an exercise exactly, but I love the way you're making me think about it because it does it takes away the idea of gender and it thinks makes me think of the idea of how am I employing both of those skill sets with one person. When you say tough love, I don't think about giving a team tough love, even though we do. But when I think of tough love, I think of me and one other person sitting in a room and we're having a very important conversation. And there's a lot that has to be considered. The tone of my voice, how are we, what are we sitting in a room alone? Is the door open? Am I, am I sitting across from you while my phone is ringing? Have what are the settings and what are we about to do here with, in this, in this meeting, if it really focuses this picture of me and this one other person, and I have to bring in my own awareness and I have to put myself in the other person's shoes. Now, what if you are,
You can totally do that with a team, by the way.
yeah, well, yes, and I am also thinking about the idea of when you want to focus on one person, how is that different than say a pep talk, and then immediately you are without thinking or without trying, you employing empathy because you're focusing on one person perhaps, or on the tough side, you're thinking about this person's potential, for example. That would be something that um, might be a masculine thing too. That's something I attribute to my father, for example, is I see the potential in you. And that's sort of a tough way of saying I love you and.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm coming from your father. It's probably easy to hear the love part, right? Or
Right.
maybe not.
Right.
Sometimes not so much.
Well, and exactly. And so that, and sometimes I don't like that. I don't like that word. Now I hear that
Yeah,
word, you have so much potential, and it's an insult. So
yeah,
it's very,
yeah,
in other words, the description of tough love makes it very personal and
yeah.
very one-on-one. And I think that's the point. Um, so
Uh,
yeah, let me stop.
yeah, yes and no. And I just, there's so much in there. We don't have time to dig into all of it, but I will say, I want to say two things. One is potential is I'm really glad you raised that because
Mm,
either one-on-one or not even or just evaluating people, right? And evaluating their potential. One thing that leaders really need to understand, and there's so much data behind this, is that we tend to be biased. This is men and women towards looking at a male and evaluating their potential as into deciding how much to give them, how much to advance them, et cetera, how much
mm,
opportunity to create for them. We look at women and we look at their achievements to date. All of us to challenge ourselves to look at potential for everyone. And you have to look at results. I'm not saying don't look at results, but I'm saying, look at results and then look at potential and and invest in potential and be conscious of whatever bias you're bringing to that vis-a-vis gender or anything else. But I want to say too about potential. Here's how I encourage men and women to talk to human beings about potential, because the word is abstract, is do you believe in them? And if you believe in them, you say, I believe in you. I believe you can do this. I believe it because I've seen you do X and Y and Z. I've also seen you struggle with A and B and C, and I'm going to help you with A and B and C, but I believe you can do this. And so the way to communicate sensitivity and empathy and the human component of that is through belief, and but you got to mean it, right? And so you have to ask
Mm.
yourself, do I believe in this person, and what is it I believe in? And then be able to articulate that, because we will do anything for people that believe in us, because we are seeing ourselves through their eyes in a way that lifts us up and creates opportunity for us. And so that's how you motivate people. You just tell them, I believe in you. Now, if you don't believe in them, that's another challenge. And we could talk about that, but
Mm.
I think that's another thing, because I want to go to something you said about teams. Tough
Mhm.
love, absolutely tough love is an important thing to do one-on-one. Teams, though, also need it
Mm.
because, and it differs by situation, of course, but one of the things we do in teams and groups is we fall into groupthink, fall into habits about how we deal with stuff. And if you go to a staff meeting every week and you ignore the troublesome data point because it's hard to deal with, we don't have an answer to it, there's a reason. We can come up with all the logic that we're not making our revenue, or our expenses are out of control, or we're not making the date to deliver the product or whatever, right? We get into these habits of ignoring the important information, and it's the leader's job to stop that, to say, hang on,
Mm.
we got to, we haven't been fessing up to this. We got to do it. And that's the tough part. And then you also have to be, I don't want to say you might be loving, but you almost want to say, like, yeah, we got ourselves into this as a group and we got to get out of this as a group. And we're going to make some hard decisions. I've made a couple. I need you guys to help. As a group, we're going to make a couple more. And that's where what you're doing in a group in particular, and this is true one-on-one, but it's really important. You're not blaming. Now, you may hold people accountable, especially privately, and say, dude, this is on you, which isn't the same as blaming. It's saying you got to help fix this, right? You got to own this. And that's different than saying you're terrible. Like you screwed up, right? Which maybe is how you feel, but the point is, if you want that person to believe that you believe they can get out of this, and you want them to deploy all their resources to getting out of this mess they've gotten us into, you can't blame them. And too many leaders fall to that. They fall into a blaming thing instead of yeah, this is on you, and I believe you can get us out of it. And here's the things I'm doing to help us get out of it. And here's what I need you to do. And we're going to do this together. And I want you back in my office tomorrow to tell me how you're going to do it. And that's just, it's a totally different thing to say, I believe in you and you're going to fix this and I'm going to make sure you fix this. It's a different way of talking. And sometimes teams need to hear that together, because what they have to do is get together and figure it out. And again, the leader is the only one that can have that, to just stop the old dialogue and say, dudes, we got to do this different. Because without the leader acknowledging that and giving everybody permission to do it different and holding them accountable to do it different, it ain't going to change. And you're just going to end up in the same pattern that's been hosing the business sometimes. So
Mm.
that's my tough love on teams diatribe, which isn't necessarily gendered, but it's, you know, men and women need that accountability.
Right. And the yes, phrasing matters. I love the option to practice phrasing. Some people are okay with the word scripting, some folks are not. And so phrasing, practicing vocabulary,
Mhm.
and the vocabulary matters. And then also what you just said about giving somebody the ball, basically. I'm That's my phrasing, right? But saying not necessarily who screwed up and why, and maybe those are important things, but I identify something that needs attention, and this is I believe in you to be able to make it right. I believe in you. I believe you're the person for the job. Or this is, in a room, I can say our team, we want to lift up together. And by the way, does I need you on point with this, I need you on point with that, being able to say, I know you're the best person for this, I know you're the best person for this. And as you mentioned, potential is abstract, however it is a form of forecasting, right? Because I've seen what you can do. And so that is really a great, that is really a big part of this phrasing and scripting too, is to, for myself as a leader who's giving the tough love, I want to remember for myself and for that person, I've seen you succeed, and this is why I know you're the person for the job, or you're the person for this particular area. So that you really have made an important point there about individual and team is both necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And good leaders know what they have to do in the group and what they have to do one-on-one.
Mm,
And they got to do both to reinforce, whatever message they're putting out. And it's hard, I'll give you a trick though, particularly when I do this in strategic planning and I love it. So you want to have a strategic conversation and everybody's in the details and they're in the weeds and they're like, dudes, we got to talk at a higher level. One of the best things to do is open the meeting with a 2x4, a data point that is a surprise to everybody. That's like, oh, wow, we have to do things differently. And a lot of the times it
mm,
comes from the outside market. So right now with AI, everybody should be having these 2x4 moments with their leadership teams right now. It's like the way things have happened for the last umpteen years, we've been doing this business. It's changing and it's changing out from under us, and we may be out of business in 2 years if we don't adapt. And then like a message like that, that's the tough part.
mm,
That's the like, okay, we cannot do things the way we used to do them. Let's now have a strategic conversation because then our weeds will change. We'll be having different weed level conversations.
mm,
And so using that 2x4 with intention up front to get people's attention, to knock them out of the way they've always been thinking about things can be really effective. But you
mm,
cannot keep the fear. Like people can't be planning in fear. You got to get them into kind of a state. But then you got to be maybe not loving, but all right, but we have employees, we have customers, we have a business here that we will have to migrate to a new way of being. So let's be realistic about what this change can be for us. And now you're into the strategic discussion part. But that tough part can be a wake-up call. And again, it's the leader that has to do that, to give the organization, the team, the individuals the permission to say, yeah, we are going to have to make some hard decisions and do things differently. So I wanted
yeah.
to pass that on as a little tip.
Well, the 2x4. Yes.
The
Oh.
factual 2x4.
What can I say about how folks can talk to you? Where do you want me to connect with you first?
Good question. Probably on LinkedIn, Dana Theus on LinkedIn, Dana Theus. I have websites I write on women's issues. I have a leadership blog at inpowercoaching.com, and that's inpower dot coaching. So I'm I'm out there and I love to talk to people about this stuff because there's so many dimensions of it. There's a leadership dimension, there's gender issues, there's authenticity issues, and they all come together and make great leaders. So that's the thing I love doing.
Well, Dana Theus, thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast. And so, yeah, so LinkedIn and Dana Theus, DanaTheus, and
That's right.
Dana Theus with as in love, in power coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Alrighty, Dana. Well, great. Thank you for chatting with me and letting me admit my struggles to you.
Many people do. It's fine.
Well, I will talk to you again really soon and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You've been listening to the Dear Business Coach podcast. My name is Elizabeth Walker, producer and host of the Dear Business Coach podcast. Music by Stones Mayo. Social media by Meenakshi Bensal. Follow and subscribe now. Thanks so much. You are a superstar.